So I wanted to get some better coverage in my garage for my cameras. I do have like 3 or 4 wise cameras, but I would like to get this down consolidated into one that you don't need SD cards for. So I'm checking out this xmartO system. I think it would be a good setup for me and a good test because it has NVR, which basically allows you to record all your footage onto an internal system that's just there with 500 gigs of storage. 4 cameras that you can mount up, and it'll be a wireless setup. So instead of just sitting here and walking through all the specs, I actually installed one of these cameras, set up the NVR, and went through the whole process to see how much of a pain in the butt this potentially would be. I'm someone that's not very handy, so this will be a real good experience. And so far the steps have honestly been pretty straightforward. There are a couple things that I don't like about the app that I'm not crazy about, but I'll show you what those actually are and how the setup went. So before we go further ahead, I do have to thank xmartO for sending out these cameras for me to go ahead and take a look at and review. My opinions and thoughts are still my own. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the unboxing process was pretty seamless. You get your clips, your cameras, your NVR, which is once again is that system that allows you to record everything to it. It has hard drive in there. It even gives you a little basic mouse, which is pretty cool because you're going to need that to kind of get everything set up. HDMI, power, mounting hardware, all that stuff is all included in the box, which I appreciate. I needed nothing else other than essentially a drill and a screwdriver. Installing one of the cameras once again was pretty simple. One thing to note, you are going to be drilling holes into wherever you're going to install this camera at, so make sure you know where you want these at before you're putting holes in your drywall or anywhere as far as that goes. You will also need to be somewhat close to power because there is a power brick that comes with the camera that you'll need to go ahead and plug in. So you'll need it somewhere close enough for camera or a way to get power to it. And you'll be drilling holes into there. I went ahead and drilled it right into one of my shelves in my garage to kind of see what it would look like and feel like. One thing to also note about the installation is you can flip the camera like in the software. So if it doesn't quite fit with the little latch that it comes with, you can flip the camera around in the software to kind of mount it how it makes sense for you. As far as actually going through and putting the little bracket into place, it's just 2 holes you put in. They give you the screw hangers to put those in once you drill the holes for the anchors, and you screw right in. The actual latch basically latches right on, and then you run your power cord to wherever you're going to get power for the camera. Honestly, pretty straightforward. I installed my first camera from opening it up to putting it on the wall in 30 to 45 minutes, so that's not bad at all. It will take me a little bit longer to go through and do the other 3 cameras because I got to figure out exactly where I want to mount those to get the best possible coverage and how many holes I do want to put in the garage. The NVR system was pretty straightforward. You give it power, you use the little mouse that comes with it, and then you run the HDMI cable out of the back of the NVR into a monitor, and from there you're greeted by a setup screen that walks you through either setting up to hardwiring into your network, a wireless network. It'll walk you through that entire process, your time zones, all of that stuff is your kind of first step. It'll even ask you to set up a admin password, which is awesome. So for no one can just get into that. Once you get through those steps, you'll be greeted by a general kind of like CCTV looking type screen, which is basically just a bunch of little squares that have all of the different cameras that are set up. I wanted to see what the camera looked like and test it before I put it into its final mounting spot. So I had one camera set up, and you can actually see 2 separate locations. One of them where there's a camera that twists back and forth. One of them where basically it's a set point where it just sits in one direction, kind of like you're looking at me. So like on one camera it has those 2 different angles you can look at, which is pretty cool. Going through the software is pretty straightforward as well if you needed to make any adjustments. The software runs like its own internal operating system, from like your Wi-Fi settings to like your resolution to checking on your camera's connectivity and how much storage there is in the actual NVR. So it was a pretty straightforward setup. As long as you are even remotely computer literate, you should have next to no issues running through this setup, getting set up, and then going into the settings and adjusting anything you might want to do. So as far as live footage goes, I think this is going to work just fine for my garage setup, and it should work just fine for most people. When I was digging into the settings, I noticed that it's about 15 frames per second. It is motion sensitive, so you can actually have it track you back and forth, which is pretty cool. Unless you're really behind something, like it picks it up pretty well. I did kind of walk back and forth and see how well it actually tracked me. There was one situation when I basically came out, it had a little difficulty tracking, but as soon as it found me, it picked up, and the camera that twists will pick me up and started following me around. You can also, one camera I'd set up in one corner could go through and see me on the complete other side of the garage, which is fantastic news. Now, if I set 2 or 3 of those up in the garage, maybe even a 4th one, I would have complete coverage everywhere. There'd be nowhere that you wouldn't be seen. The footage, as you can see, is perfectly clear. It looks like me. Obviously, it's not quite as clear as what you're seeing right here, but I was wearing the exact same stuff earlier today when I installed those and kind of ran some tests. We'll continue on. As far as the live feed, the interface felt perfectly fine. The PTZ like tracking thing was totally fine. Image quality was fine. It's not like super crystal 4K footage, but you don't really need that in most situations anyway. It's nice to have, but not needed. It will ultimately save you a bunch of space on the NVR as well. And in the like 20 or 30 minutes of footage I got, I used less than half a gig, and I have 500 gigabytes sitting on the storage on the NVR. So like even having 4 cameras running 24/7 will give me plenty of storage. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. All right, so what is my verdict on this? And am I going to set up those other cameras? The answer is yes. I'm going to set up at least 2 to 3 more cameras. I would like to set one up in my attic as well, but I don't have an easy power out area, so I'm not sure that I will set one up there specifically, but I want to set up a couple more cameras up there. I just have to make sure I'm happy with where those cameras are gonna be before I drill those holes, because you do have to drill holes. This is something in my garage I would set up. This would be something I would be okay setting up outside as well, as long as I can get power to it, but for my use case, it's gonna be for the garage. The footage seems adequate. The NVR seems awesome to be able to have 500 gigs of storage. I don't have to pay anything more forever, instead of trying to get like just completely enamored by ads every time I log into like my Wise app, for example. The only knocks I'd have is the app on your phone seems kind of, it works and it does its job, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't seem very polished. And they definitely try to push you slightly towards cloud storage, but not nearly as aggressive as more mainstream apps like your Wise Camera of the world. So I think for my use case, and for a lot of people's use cases, they just want to get 4 wireless cameras up, as long as you can get power to them, as long as you can live with the app, which I think the app is adequately fine. It's just not super great, and it's not rated particularly well high on the Apple App Store, which I can understand why. So if you can get past those things, I think this would be a great option for you. You'll never have to pay for storage because it's all in NVR, and it's nice to have peace of mind that things are being recorded in areas that matter to you. So with that being said, hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully give you an idea what you're walking yourself into if you're going to be looking at getting this system. Once again, thank you to the brand for sending this out. I'll leave it there. You have a great rest of your day.